We have an interesting and a little bit different program for you today. And I'm going to get up off the bench. Actually, David and I should move together because we're going to be doing today big organ, little organ, or compare and contrast this massive instrument that we have here with all these knobs and multiple keyboards and pedal board, all that stuff, with something very different. So I'll jump off the bench here. David's going to just move with me from big organ to little organ. One little keyboard, no pedals. So we're going to let David get some close-ups of the organ and the insides, and I'll talk while he's doing that. So today what I'm going to do is play 3 pieces twice, each piece on both organs. And mostly these are pieces that were written for this little organ and have adapted to the big organ. So for example, the piece I opened with, John Stanley's Voluntary, trumpet, well, called Trumpet Voluntary, it's really just a voluntary, often used for weddings, one of my favorite pieces. You've heard me give a shout out to Ken Tedeschi, the brilliant trumpeter in Connecticut, with whom I worked years ago. Ken introduced me to the Stanley, and it's I just love it. Now that was full organ with big trumpet sounds, pedal, rumbling pedal, very dramatic. The piece had a slightly more modest beginning. So John Stanley was an English composer from the 18th century, and he was playing or writing and playing the organ at a time when in England particularly the organ, the pedal wasn't really a big developed thing yet. It was more about the manuals. Now there could be 2 manuals, so you could get a solo sound, but also frequently there would be just one manual with not a lot of different sounds. And most of these voluntaries, interestingly, began with a very slow, quiet movement, often in a minor key. Not always, but often in a minor key. So this particular voluntary, I didn't play the slow movement, I just played the big movement. I'm going to now play it a little bit more like like it was really written originally. So it'll start with this quiet, slow movement in a minor key, and then go into the piece that I just played. But I'm going to be playing it just on 2 stops. This organ has 3 sets of pipes, an 8-foot pipe, which sounds like this. That's middle C pitch. A 4-foot stop, which sounds an octave higher. And a 2-foot stop, which sounds even 2 octaves higher. And of course you can combine them, like so. So for this voluntary, I'm going to play the first movement just on the 8-foot flute. And then for the bright, quick movement, I'm going to add the 4-foot flute. But just compare, remember the sound, and actually, I'll just do one quick thing for you while David's going to get himself set up. I'm going to just play a chord on the sounds that I used on big organ. So this is how we heard it before. And now we're going to hear it in a little bit more of its original form. Interesting, John Stanley was sort of a contemporary of Handel and actually took over from Handel in a couple of roles. I didn't realize that until I was doing my research. So he wrote 3 big books of voluntaries. This is from one of those. different effect. Now, again, an organ in England at Stanley's time could have had two manuals or a divided manual where you could one sound at the top, another sound at the bottom. So it's possible they might have had an oboe or a trumpet, or they might have called the oboe a hautboy in good English style, that could have soloed that out. But many small parish churches might have had an organ not much bigger than this, and they would have had to just play on flutes like I just did. But as you can see, the effect is very different. Just another word or two about the organ itself. The keys are quite small, much smaller than that. So you'll hear me glitch, unfortunately, probably a lot, because my big fat fingers aren't as nimble as they used to be, and it just is a little bit harder to get in the middle of the organ there. And you see I'm standing up. You could sit on a bench, but then your knees sort of push you away from the keyboard. So it really is very suitable to just stand here. So the next piece I'm going to play for you twice is a fugue based on the Magnificat chant, and this is by Pachelbel. Now, many people know Pachelbel because of the canon. So Pachelbel wrote lots of music. Interesting about him, he was let me get this right, I have to think my terms before I speak. Let's see, he was 17th century. And he was really influential in the South German school. Think about Buxtehude and Bach later, that was more the North German. But Pachelbel was writing in the South German school, and the organs were different. There was more emphasis on the manual. Sometimes they didn't even have pedals. In North Germany, the pedal was an early and highly developed division, so there was a lot of pedal work in Buxtehude and Bach. You've heard me and certainly David play pieces where you see the feet very busy. So these fugues, they're a big set of these fugues based on the Magnificat. They can almost all be played without any pedal at all. So I'm going to first play the fugue here at the little organ, and then go at the big organ, and you'll hear very different effects, because at the end I do bring in the pedal, and it makes a very, very different effect. For this, I'm going to play it simply on the 4-foot stop. So you can hear it's going to be kind of high, like that, but it's a very clear stop, and the low D sounds pretty quickly. Our 8-foot stop is a little slower to sound, so we'll use the 4. The organ itself, I'll just say one other thing. This is built by Bennett and Guattari, just up the road in Rehoboth, Massachusetts. Barely 15-20 minutes from here. This was built in 2005, and it belongs to Brown University and curated by Fred Jodry, and we are so grateful to Brown and to Fred for letting us sort of house it here during Corona tide when it's not being used over there, and we're making use of it here, and delighted to be able to share it with you today. It's really beautiful, as you saw from when David was showing you some of the paintings and carvings. Lovely, lovely piece. So this is Pachelbel's fugue on the Magnificat. This is his first fugue on the Magnificat. I'll play it here, and I'll go right to the big organ and see what you think of the difference. Magnificat is Mary's song of praise from the Bible, from the Gospel of Luke. We often hear that canticle at evensong. If you were going to characterize, you might say that this version was Mary sort of walking lightly through the garden singing her song of praise. This one might be a little bit more like she put on combat boots and came stomping towards you. So just very different feel and color. Quick other word about the organ. This is a mechanical action or tracker action organ. So the organ is, from every key, there's a little strip of wood that goes to each pipe. And so it's actually mechanically controlling, by pushing the key down, mechanically controlling when the pipe opens and the wind is allowed in. The big organ is a pipe organ, plus, as we know, you've heard me say, lots and lots of digital. But the pipe portion of the organ, it's an electric current that goes from the key, electric impulse or current that goes from the key up into the chamber and tells the pipe to open and play. So here you're very, very connected. You can actually feel it. You can sort of feel the click or tick of the wood as you move. So a very different feeling. So I'm going to just say a couple words about what's happening coming up and then play the last pieces for you. So next week, David is going to play a wonderful program for you, works of Bach, Bolcom, Franck, and others. That'll be spectacular. And then for our final week of June, David and I are going to do some duets for you, a real treat. And well, we hope it'll be a real treat. We'll see. So that's what's coming up. Also, for those of you watching, Collegium Ancora will be releasing a quarantine cabaret out on the town. That's this coming Saturday night at 7 on Facebook, and I'm sending, or I've actually already sent to our Music at Grace list. I've already sent the link to that, so you've gotten that, and you can go and watch through Facebook a really fantastic hour-long program, members of Collegium singing fantastic cabaret songs. And if you're not on the Music at Grace list, it's going to also be in our e-news, and you'll be able to find it, or just go to the Collegium Ancora Facebook page. So to close our program today, I'm going to play a piece by Couperin, Louis Couperin. And the Couperin family was a big family, and there were lots of musicians. The most famous, the Grand Couperin, as it were, or Le Grand Couperin, was Francois, and he was the nephew of Louis. Louis was a 17th century composer, and again, writing particularly in France at the time when the pedal was sort of nil or barely developed. Often would just be a few pedal notes that could be used as a pedal point. So lots of this music was written to be played on manuals or on the harpsichord, manuals of the organ or the harpsichord. So I'm going to play it first in its sort of original form, and while I'm doing that on the little organ, I'm going to be going back and forth between the 8-foot and 4-foot stop, or adding, and David's going to be my registrant, because if I have to stop and do this, we lose time, and you lose the rhythm of the piece. So I'll play it here. It's a little sort of it's called a chacun. That means that the pedal, the bass line is sort of the same over and over. But it really feels like a little dance here on the little organ. And then I'll close the program by going straight to the big organ and playing the same piece arranged by Joseph Bonnet, who was a Frenchman from the late 19th, early 20th century. He arranged this for big organ with big chords and a big pedal part. And it's just really exciting, but again, I hope you enjoy and notice the vast difference between the sort of light, airy, dance-like quality here and some more bombastic quality here. Thank you for being with us today. Hope you've enjoyed Big Organ, Little Organ, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.